Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our newest edition of our Tea Time with Coastal Water Protectors. Tonight, our topic is on microplastics. And before I introduce our lovely guest speaker for the evening, I'm just going to quickly go over a little bit about our department and what the Coastal Water Protectors are. So my name is Angel Fisher, and I am the Director of Coastal Conservation with BC Métis Federation. And alongside me with our department, we have our coastal manager, Zia Yazdani. And we are responsible for the conservation-related activities here at the Federation. And some of the things I'm going to talk to you about tonight we're wrapping up our year end here, and we have a heavy focus on children and youth programs. So some of you may have already signed up to be a coastal water protector, and if you have, great, and if not, there's still time to do so. We also have 2 age categories that were newer additions in 2023, and that is coastal pups for ages 5 to 11 and coastal sea wolves for 12 to 18. However, we also have youth-related programs where we take youth out ages 19 to 30. So if you have any children in those 2 age categories, now's a good time to sign up, because as we're wrapping up our year end, we have quite a few activities coming up. Next week, we're going to have Bodhi Patel come on, who is fantastic with children, to give a little bit of his ocean story. And we also are going to be taking some trips down to the Vancouver Aquarium and some fish hatcheries. So it's a great time to get signed up. And today, our topic is going to be on Microplastics Matter, Understanding the Invisible Threat. So I'm going to introduce to you our guest speaker, Clare Stone, who's going to be doing a bit of a presentation on microplastics. And if you have any questions or comments for either me or for Clare, I'm not too sure if you're seeing an option down in the chat box to add anything. If not, if you're on Instagram and you want to send me a DM, and I can feed the questions off through there. So I'll pass it off to Clare.
Thanks, Angel. Thanks for the lovely introduction. Yeah, I guess a little bit about myself, sorry, my name's Clare Stone. My pronouns are she and her. And I actually met Zia and Angel at like an Oceanwise Building Bridges like networking event in Victoria, so on Vancouver Island. And it's just really great to reconnect with them. And it was so lovely to have them to reach out to them and have them have me on this as a speaker who's clearly fumbling all over the place. But yeah, I guess about my background, I'm actually from Ottawa, so somewhere that's landlocked and not near the ocean at all. But as many of you know, that like, we're connected to the ocean in so many ways. So all our streams, rivers, wetlands, lakes, they're all connected to the ocean. And I've just been very passionate about water protection and environmental issues relating to water in general. I have a background in environmental studies, and like I mentioned, I'm just mostly passionate and always volunteering, always trying to learn new skills. For example, like I'm in Vancouver right now. I'm always involved in like volunteering. So like beaver surveys, stream invertebrate surveys, bog restoration projects, intertidal surveys. So what do all those sort of activities have in common? They're all connected to our waterways. And I really liked that Angel shared a bit more about the youth programs that you offer, because that's like a lot of people ask me for advice, and my main advice is getting involved in volunteer programs or like youth programs while you can before you get too old like I am right now. Um, but I guess I'll just like briefly start talking about microplastics. And if you have any questions, definitely chime them in the chat or send a DM on Instagram. But what are microplastics? Like that word is just being thrown around all the time. And if you asked me a few years ago, maybe like 4 years ago, I wouldn't even know what they were. Basically, they're tiny pieces of plastic, so they're less than 5 millimeters in size. So they're really tiny pieces of plastic that are broken down from larger pieces. A great example that I like to unfortunately see a lot of, but like to think about is styrofoam. So styrofoam can be really like it can be a really large piece, and I know you've picked them apart sometimes. I've definitely done them, but you can like create smaller pieces from them, and they basically get everywhere. So, sort of using that sort of like imagery, like imagine that in our environment, like when you're taking a walk outside or breaking apart in the water. It's like we don't want that, if possible. So those are sort of different types of microplastics. Another one is called a nurdle. So it's like the word turtle, but with an N, or they're also called plastic pellets. And they're sort of like, I wish I had a lentil, but they're like the size of a lentil, and they're usually white in color. They do come in different other colors too, but what is it? So basically, you have to think about how plastics are made. And so the nurdle is a raw material that is melted down to create plastics. And like I said, they're very small and light. And unfortunately, that's how they easily enter into the ecosystems. Like even when I was picking them up on the beach, if the wind blew, sometimes they would go everywhere, and then you're just like picking them up again and crying internally. Um, so when you're doing cleanups, a lot of people focus on the larger items, which is really great, but it's like don't forget about the smaller pieces. Um, yeah, I'm not too sure how this works, but maybe Angel chime in if there's questions.
Yeah, so we did get one question here so far.
Great.
This is
Yeah.
coming in from Instagram. What are some easy ways that we can reduce microplastics in our everyday life?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think it's like overlooked, and it's part of sort of the bigger picture, unfortunately. So reducing plastics in general. Um, So looking for different alternatives. I know here there's different programs where you could use your reusables, or just really thinking about it, thinking about before you purchase something like, hey, does this actually come in glass, or can I use my own container? Um, Thinking about how something is made.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome. And when you're on the beach, like, sorry, Angel,
no, not at all.
um, yeah, there's maybe like I mean I've done more like scientific surveys, but there's like when you're doing cleanups, I wish I had a sieve with me, but like those sort of sieves that you use for pasta that are metal. Um, yeah, like anybody can bring those down to the beach and sort of like put some sand in it and shake it. You will get rocks, you will get debris, but sometimes little microplastics will pop up as well. And to be honest, I just sort of collect them and I have them in a jar, and I've sent some off for art projects. Like yeah, like there's one guy in Germany who has a whole art display just with these nurdles, and yeah, there's just different ways to use them, I guess, because you
Yeah.
can't technically recycle them because they collect toxins, unfortunately.
Oh,
Um, yeah, like one of my friends was like making hacky sacks out of like recycled material, which is really cool. And we're like, hey, maybe we can use nurdles to fill hacky sacks. But then we're like, is that still maybe a little bit of a health concern because we don't know what toxins are collected
right.
in them? Yeah.
And so, how did you? Sorry, can you go back to the part of where like you can make a homemade type of clean?
Yeah. Yeah, so like a strainer that you strain pasta with, you can just use one of those and obviously wash them very carefully before you actually use them for pasta. Or you can get really handy. There's so many resources online. You can get, you might hear my friend's cat in the background eating noisily, but you can get screen that is like that's smaller. You want them, oh wait, you want them smaller than 5 millimeters, so you will be able to catch them. And you just use wood and like you sort of make a frame with the
Oh,
screen.
yeah.
Yeah, and like you can sieve them out. There's so many cool like experiments and projects out there
Well,
that
that's a
like
good.
anybody can do.
Yeah, that just gave
Yeah.
me a great idea for maybe one of our youth trips where we could kind of make some and see how much we can collect in a certain period of time. Probably quite a bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Like here in Vancouver, also just by waterways. But if you do come out to Vancouver Island, I'd be happy to go with you and just like go
Yeah,
around and do like a little survey. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you for that.
yeah,
We have another question here.
great.
What made you want to get involved in environmental work?
Oh, this one's a hard question. I think it's something that I mean, everybody in their teenage years sort of drifts off into a totally other direction, and for me, it was probably like fashion design and uh, and like early childhood education. I went in other directions, but it's always been nature for me. There's always something about it. I've always been curious about things and asking my poor uncle and everyone else around me all these questions about what leaf is this or what tea can you make from this or what animal made this track or something like that. So it really is something that's connected to who I am as a person, and it's just yeah, it's something I'm very passionate about.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah.
And we have another one here. What is your favorite conservation related activity that you like to take part in?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. um, I think one that actually led to a job was turtle nesting surveys. So it was actually in Ottawa, of all places. There's a little island called Petrie Island, and it's just very unique. There's a lot of sand. So they've always liked to nest there. And I know a lot of other volunteers struggled with finding nests, but because I'm way too observant and obsessed with animals, I would notice little tracks or I would find the most nests. And for me, that was, and then you're basically you're finding the nest, you're letting the staff know, and then you're collecting the eggs and you're protecting them from predators, and then releasing all the babies in the fall. um,
Wow,
Yeah, and that led to a job, which was really great.
that
Yeah.
sounds fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't love turtles? Baby turtles too.
They're so cute.
Yeah.
Very cute. Speaking of turtles, actually, have you ever
Mhm.
um, come across? Can you? I don't remember the name of those really large ones, but I know Vancouver Island can sometimes people might be able to view them. Is it the leatherback?
I think so, yeah. And there's a bunch of different ones here in BC. I unfortunately haven't seen a sea turtle yet. It's on my list.
Seen
Yeah.
one in person, like in the wild, and I was like, oh, that would be a dream. to-
Exactly. Yeah. And just like some creature that's just so big and beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take another quick look here to see if there's any more
No
questions.
worries. Yeah.
Okay, so we have one more for the coastal department. Uh,
Mhm.
what made you want to be a coastal water protector? So for me, the coastal water protector team started about 3 years ago. And the driving force behind that was that we had just started to notice that there was a lot of people with like minded opinions and thoughts on conservation and wanting to get involved. And we wanted to have as many people as we could get involved in that. So we thought launching the Coastal Water Protector volunteer program would be a great opportunity for that. We do have monthly activities that we do with all various different age groups. Some of them are virtual, like the one we're having today. Some of them were in person, like last week we did one where we had a Create Your Coastal Spirit Animal with Louise Lambert from Wine Country Studios. And then next week we have another webinar. So we try to engage our coastal water protectors, regardless of what their age categories are, and get them involved on a monthly basis. And that's something we're going to strive to continue to do for 2024 as well. And we have one more question here for both of us. What are some goals that you have for 2024 regarding conservation?
Do you want to go first, Angel? Yeah.
So for me, a work-related goal that I have is we are going to start in April launching a podcast where we plan on having 2 podcasts per month with guest speakers from all different walks of life to come on and talk, share their story, share a bit about their work with conservation, and just try to get more people involved in more remote areas of BC that we might not be able to reach for in-person events. And a personal goal of mine that I have for 2024, while we're on the topic of plastics, is to reduce my footprint when it comes to plastics. It's something I definitely have been working on, and I just think I could probably do a little bit more on that. So that's kind of my goals for 2024.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so incredible about the podcast. I was just wondering, how would others get in contact with you if they were interested?
Yeah, so once it's kind of launched in April, we're going to be advertising it a few different ways. So one of them is going to be through, if you are signed up to be a coastal water protector, you'll always hear about that first through our distribution list. And then we're quite active on social media, on our Instagram page particularly. So we always post on there, and definitely looking for um, guest speakers for each episode, and also maybe we'll throw in a bit of panelists. I know we've done some panelist sessions in person at our conferences, and those were really well received, and it's really nice, I think, to get a small group of people together and kind of going back and forth and sharing ideas and talking and networking that way. So we'll probably do that as well. So when the time comes, we'll be heavily advertising that. And if anyone's interested, we would love to have you on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to share it with my contacts. I know a few people that would be really great candidates for that. Yeah. I guess, yeah, I guess going back to my goals, oh my goodness. Well, I need to get a job. That's my main goal. But I think something that's sort of on in sort of getting worked out is I'll be hopefully a marine debris field assistant, and we'll be going to local and sort of more rural, like not rural, but like beaches that are sort of untouched and only accessible by boats, and sort of comparing that data. So I think one of my goals, okay, first off, I need a little bit better of a work-life balance. That's just a given. But also I want to share what's found on these beaches that that's only accessible by boat. Like, what are the things that we might not be seeing? And not in like a negative way, but just some way to create some insight about findings, and looking at alternatives, like you mentioned, trying to reduce plastic consumption. And like, yeah, sometimes it's hard. Like, there's only a certain amount of zero waste stores depending on where you are, and sometimes they're not always affordable and accessible for everybody. So it's, yeah, there's just a lot to be done around that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That looks like that's it for our questions right now.
Great.
Was there anything else you wanted to share, or maybe how people can get in contact with you?
Yeah, for sure. I think, well, yeah, I guess you can always message me on Instagram. My handle is domraylove. And if you want my email, also feel free to reach out to Angel and Zia and just feel free to share my contact information. But once again, sort of going back to just getting involved in youth programs, like I wouldn't even know what a microplastics were until I had an opportunity to be involved in a youth program that actually paid for my flights, paid for my accommodation. I got an incredible placement at the Euclid Aquarium, and they just happened to be doing microplastic surveys on the beaches of Tofino and Euclid. Um, I wouldn't have even probably made it to BC without that. And then with Ocean Bridge, I was able to really expand that side of myself. I mean, I'm nervous now, but I don't think I would be involved in sort of these types of collaborations because I was just too shy, and so I was able to really boost my passion by joining these youth programs. So yeah,
That's great. Speaking of that
exactly.
aquarium, that's one of my favorite little aquariums to visit when I'm on the island.
Yeah, it's opening on March 1st.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Our youth group that we have that we're going to be going down to Fino on the 29th. That's going to be one of our stops on the return back home is stopping in there.
Oh, lovely. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, maybe let me know and I'll join you. I just
yeah,
love going in there. Yeah.
yeah. We're going to be taking. There's 12 of us going down. Between the ages of 19 to 30, and we're going to be spending a couple days down in Tofino and doing some whale tours and helicopter tours. So
Wow.
for
That's so
sure, it's
cool.
going to be a really great experience for
Yeah.
the youth. Yeah. And we got one more question.
Okay.
Um, what is one small lifestyle change that people can make when it comes to microplastics?
Ooh. Um, I think it requires you to sort of take a look at your own ecological footprint. And a lot of my little assignments and things like that, it was just like recording, like, because you don't really know how much plastic you might be using. Like sometimes you're like, oh, like it's not too much, but once you actually record it, um, that and see it, like if you collect it in a jar or like a little box for a week or a few days, then you can really see, hey, actually this might add up. What could I have done differently? If I maybe brought my own mug, or say I always have like spare cutlery in my bag and it gets a little gross, but like it's I prefer that over say a plastic um like takeout container or something like that. So keep it simple and don't stress too much. It's sort of about the little changes and it's getting into those habits. Check out your local zero waste stores. I know like Bulk Barn, you can get quite a few things. You can bring your own jars. I know here in Vancouver they're sort of spread out, but say in Ottawa, there's a lot of Bulk Barns everywhere. So look into sort of options like that are affordable. And yeah, I that's like a very vague answer.
Yeah, I think if I had one piece of advice, it would be to just
Mhm.
choose something that is attainable and try not to
Yeah.
rush into doing too many things where it becomes a bit of I don't want to use the word burden, but where it
Mhm.
becomes almost unattainable for you to achieve it. I think if we just do
Exactly.
little small things over time and then incorporate another new small thing, by the end of the year, you probably have maybe half a dozen small things that are actually not so small anymore, but quite a big impact.
Exactly. And it's about like sort of it's about awareness. Like don't beat yourself up if you're like, I mean, look at me. I got like a green juice and it's in a plastic container. I could have probably made my own green juice. But it's just thinking about those things. It's
Yeah.
being aware is really important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's all for our questions. So thank you again so much for coming on as a guest speaker tonight and talking about microplastics. And I'll be sure to post about this as well on our Instagram page and our YouTube as
Okay.
well. It's live right now, but it's being recorded and it's going to be posted on our page. So we'll be sure to include all of Claire's information for you to reach out to her on, as well as our department if you want to reach out to us. And we're going to be having another webinar next week with Bodhi Patel. It's targeted for children, but of course, anybody can participate and listen in on that. And with that, I'll say good night and thank you, everybody, for stopping by this evening. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.